Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Cuyahoga County work session for Tuesday, September the 13th. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Ms. Simon? Here. Mr. Greenspan?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Brady?
Present.
Mr. Germana?
Here.
Mr. Gallagher?
Here.
Mr. Schron?
Here.
Ms. Conwell?
Present.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Rogers?
Here.
Ms. Conley?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I also like to welcome Scott Singer, who was our summer intern and worked on some of our educational issues. And thank you for being with us. And thank you for your service this summer. It was a wonderful program. I'm sure it was very beneficial to you and to us. We are here for a special presentation this afternoon for a work session dealing with a very unique aspect of our charter that's set forth in section 309.11. And that section is under the powers and duties of Cuyahoga County Council, and it prescribes that council shall establish and provide for the administration of a post-secondary educational assistance program for county residents. And I would stress that it's post-secondary, which means that this program is designed for people who either have a high school diploma or have a GED. The program is to be funded in part from savings realized from the new charter form of government. This afternoon, we will hear from a panel of community partners, all of whom have been involved in the educational assistance program. And I'd like to thank Sister Joanne Gross, who has set this program up and worked very diligently on it. This is going to be an educational process for both the council and for the community who's listening into this process. We would like information about setting up the scholarship that we are mandated to do under the charter, and we are looking forward to hearing from you. And we're also looking forward to hearing from the public, who will have the opportunity to go onto our website and provide us with any comments that they might have. Our panelists are representative of the county's community college, the foundation community, a nonprofit committed to strengthening the manufacturing base, including promoting workforce initiatives, a long-time nonprofit college access and scholarship program, and the county's workforce investment program. Each of our panelists will briefly address council, and then we will open it up for questions and discussions. I invite our panelists to start by introducing themselves and their names and affiliation with their opening remarks. And we'll start with...
I think I'm supposed to...
Okay.
Start.
Thank you.
I'm in the hot seat.
Okay.
I'm John Colm. I'm the president and executive director of WireNet. And glad to be here today. I think it's really great that this clause ended up in the county charter. Sometime I'd like to learn how that happened. Because given what's happening at the federal level, I think it's really important, and it creates a great opportunity for the county to actually be a leader in this arena. I wanted to give just a quick snapshot of WireNet. Hopefully you've got the presentation up there. I brought copies. Some of you I've spoken with before, and talk a little bit about our history in workforce development and kind of what we saw that was so important in this charge that was given to the county council. And then lastly, talk just a little bit about some work that we're doing in this regards in terms of preparing high school youth for careers and future post-secondary learning. So WireNet itself, we're a nonprofit organization. We were founded in 1988. Our mission is to strengthen manufacturing, to create healthy communities and fuel economic growth. We're, I don't know if we're so small anymore, but we're 23 staff and a $3.5 million budget. We have about 300 members across the region, and our programs focus on manufacturers' needs. So just a few examples of that includes our work in new market development for companies in the wind and biomedical device industries, our manufacturing improvement programs that focus on lean manufacturing and helping companies with improving their quality systems. And lastly, and most relevant today, our talent programs, which include a recruitment service that we offer to our members, pipeline development through our work at Max Hayes Career Technical High School, and job training through some of the other programs that we're involved in. So why manufacturing? Why is this important? I think many of you will understand this. There are over 2,200 manufacturing establishments in Cuyahoga County, 68,000 jobs with an average salary over $53,000 a year. So it's a very critical economic engine, even in its much reduced state as the economy has shifted over the years. It's still very important here. There are a number of key issues that are bothering manufacturers, if you will. And this information comes from our quarterly economic forecast survey, which we do year-round. Sales and markets, anything having to do with a company's profitability right now is the top concern given the economy. Another thing that's emerged in the last half a year or so has been the cost of raw materials, which has been climbing rapidly. And something that's shifted from this time last year to now is the reemergence of talent as a primary concern of manufacturers. They're having trouble finding the right kinds of people, and that's really where the work you're involved in today comes in. WireNet has been involved in workforce development and education since 1989, and this lists a number of the things that we've been involved in. Most of what we've done can be termed a sectoral intervention, if you will, in terms of targeting either manufacturing or a specific occupation or cluster of occupations within manufacturing. An example of that is our machine trade sectoral initiative, which targeted the precision machining sector, and we were involved in this for about 8 years back in the early to mid-90s. Currently, our programs in the workforce development arena include our skilled talent recruitment, and then we're also a partner in a countywide initiative called Work Advance, which is working to find entry-level positions for adults who are undergoing short-term training. So in general, I think workforce development systems and the manufacturing sector don't seem to get along too well. There are some exceptions to this, but the systems don't really work very well for manufacturers, and you hear a lot of complaints from companies about their ability to find people, their ability to connect in a meaningful way with the workforce development system or the education system. That's really why WireNet got involved. We're a broker to help make that relationship work a little better. In my view, and given our work over the years, for workforce development to work, you need these 5 key elements. One is a sectoral approach. So if you're going to be doing adult workforce development in a particular occupational sector, you better have people on your team that understand that sector very intimately. And by sector, my note says here, manufacturing is not a sector. Manufacturing is an industry. You can't target manufacturing. It's too broad. It's too diverse. You can target within that, and that's what we have done over the years. And the county has had some experience in this area as well. But precision machining is a sector. There's a cluster of occupations related to the precision machining industry. Industrial maintenance or mechatronics is another sector that could be targeted in a meaningful way. The second key thing is that you put the customer in the driver's seat. And by that I mean you put the employer. These initiatives need to be employer-led so that you know that there are going to be jobs at the end of the training program. You also need the employer in the driver's seat because you want the training to reflect industry-defined competencies. The skill standards, certifications, they need to be industry-defined, not defined, with all due respect, by an academic program or a well-meaning nonprofit organization. Fourth would be strong core competencies. And by this, I mean they're commonly referred to as soft skills, but graduates of these programs have to come out able to communicate, able to problem solve, able to work in a team, things of that nature. Those are as important as the technical competency these days. And lastly, I would say that the approach needs to include career pathways. So this implies that both the company and the trainee are going to define a career path that requires continuous learning and also has a pathway for wage growth. What I liked about the charge to the county council was the focus on vocational and technical education. I think this is absolutely critical for the region and anybody that we hope to retain in Ohio. Nearly half of the jobs projected through 2018 are projected to be in this middle skill, technical skill kinds of jobs. And there is going to be a need for significant investment here. But again, I think that the county can be a real leader in this nationally, given the charge. And if we're successful at designing an approach that is effective here, this will allow lower income workers to raise their living standards and those of their family. There's some significant challenges in this work, and you're going to hear more about this, no doubt. But first of all, I think most of us recognize that college enrollment alone does not equal college readiness or college success. 42% of freshmen entering two-year college programs require some sort of remediation in math, reading, or writing. So high school kids are entering two-year programs, and then they basically have to go back to high school for a year or so to brush up on their skills so they can get to the basic level. So high schools have some big challenges, and they need to improve what they're doing. And this brings me to the work that we're doing at Max Hayes, which I think is very interesting and instructive because the Max Hayes students represent a cohort of students that I hope would be potentially coming to the county program or a regional program for ongoing post-secondary education. The school district, Cleveland School District, is planning to build a new Max Hayes, which will open in 2014. And WireNet's board basically said that that's a great thing, but what are we going to do with that new school? Are we just going to pour the old wine into that new bottle, or are we going to do something different? We worked with the school district and put together a team that undertook an 18-month project to define and understand what the best practices were in career technical education. And our goal working with the district was to define a rigorous and relevant 21st century career tech high school. And the challenge here is to not only teach students a set of skills, whether that be in the construction industry, transportation, or whatever, but also how to learn so that they can continue to improve their skills going forward. This slide, you can see the stakeholders that were involved. This was done in conjunction with the Cleveland District, as well as about 100 other community and business stakeholders. Many of the people that are up here today were involved in this project. We could not have done it without, for example, the Cleveland Foundation, the George Gunn Foundation. Tri-C was very involved. So this was really a community project to undertake a design for this new school to ensure that kids that graduate from Max Hayes in the future have a diploma that means something in terms of their readiness for work, career, and college, and also in terms of the readiness for work, that the industry that they would go into would understand that those students knew something and knew how to do something. And that's what I mean by industry certifications. I'll kind of move more quickly through this. We're basically focusing in the new school on 5 career clusters. Architecture, building, and construction is a big one. Computer and information technology, manufacturing, transportation, and then there will be ultimately an open cluster. Kids will be able to pick from among these different clusters, as well as some of the other cross-cutting themes, and design their own career pathway with the assistance of a faculty advisor. These cross-cluster themes include emerging technology, because technology is changing every day, environmental sustainability, arts and design, and entrepreneurial ventures. It's also critical that the professional staff at the school get trained in this new approach to problem-based learning, which was really going to be the core of the instruction there. So at the new Max Hayes, basically, students are going to be able to learn both how to run a business as well as how to work in one. And the school will be looking at the jobs and industry of tomorrow, not just today. As I mentioned, project and team-based learning is going to be the core of how instruction will happen there, and we'll be teaching students to learn as well as to do. So hopefully that wasn't too quick. I just one last comment I want to make about these middle skill jobs. What does a middle skill job look like? Well, I pulled a bunch of these off of the Plain Dealer's employment section today. This is a position for a plastic plating company on the west side. The job title is Maintenance Multi-Craft Technician. And this is a person that must possess strong electrical, PLC, that's a computer that controls a machine, mechanical, plumbing, pump repair, welding, and fabrication. Hydraulic skills a plus. That is not your father's vocational education that required for that kind of a job. But this is the kind of training that I think the county needs to be supporting and that you're going to see at the new Max A's. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions? We do have 5 people we got to get through in 2 hours, so let's make our questions brief if we can.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a very quick question about what, if any, relationship does your company have with the trade, the unions, and the apprenticeship programs that are already in place? Do you have a relationship with the trades?
WireNet does not exactly, but at Max Hayes, the relationship with the unions and the trades, particularly in the construction trades, is really critical. And they were very involved in the project to define the program there. I think there's a huge opportunity for growth in apprenticeship programs that many unionized trades still support and promote. Those programs in general, I think, have really weakened across the country and in Ohio. They are good models, and they're used much more widely in Europe than they are in the U.S. So we've got an opportunity, and I think we ought to engage them in this process as well.
And what is the cost for a year or a quarter or semester? Do you have a rough idea of the cost? And in addition to which, do you have companies that would need these kind of workers that would provide scholarships for these programs?
Well, many companies do offer employer-assisted assistance for tuition. But we've heard that employers are having trouble in engaging, some employers are having trouble engaging employees in those programs. So that's why I think the opportunity in front of the county is to create more of a campaign and more visibility about the importance of this, both in terms of earning power, your ability to take your credential and take it to different kinds of employers, so having mobility to the credential that you earn.
As long as they're in Cuyahoga County.
Of course. But, in reality, if the county is successful at promoting this and we're using skill standards that are used nationally, that means people that are trained elsewhere can come here. But we have to tie this to the economic development agenda of the county as well, so that we have the jobs at the end of the pipeline. I don't know how to answer the question of cost. I think when you talk to Tri-C, as a provider of 2-year degrees, would certainly be able to answer that. If not today, we can get the information to you.
Mr. Schrein?
Yes, Mr. Combs, you had mentioned something about in your last comment there about national skill standards, and I think it would go back to Ms. Simon's question about apprenticeship. Could you describe what you meant by national skill standards?
Well, the National Association of Manufacturers has a national initiative underway to certify 500,000 workers in the key manufacturing technical trades. Here in Ohio, our colleagues at Magnet are the partner in that initiative. There's a lot more to do there, but basically they are defining a comprehensive set of skill standards that can be used by employers, training institutions to ensure that when a student comes out of one of these 2-year programs or certificate programs, an employer can look at the skill standards and the completion, basically it's a certification. The employer will know specifically what that trainee can do. Not how long they sat in a chair and listened to somebody talk or that kind of thing. It goes down to specific competencies that they are able to perform that are related to a particular occupation. So there's a whole system being developed there, and I think the county ought to be looking hard, particularly if you're going to make technical education a feature of this program, you ought to look hard at adopting that and utilizing that system and not reinventing the wheel.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Friedman, and by the way, I'm told that the movie production company is going to be blowing up the car out in front of the Lakeside Courthouse between 4 and 4:30, so don't everybody jump, right? Okay.
Change the order a little bit.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah. Who wants to go? Mr. McCovey?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Proceed.
Thank you for inviting us here today to share with you. My name is Quentin McCorvey. I'm a Senior Vice President at KeyBank, but I also have the pleasure of chairing the joint Cleveland-Cuyahoga County Workforce Investment Board. My comments will be more broad-based, and Sister Joan Gross scripted us pretty hard and pretty heavy, and gave us some very direct questions to answer. So I do not want to cross Sister Gross, and hopefully I'll stay along the lines of the questions she asked, and hopefully during the question and answer period can get a little bit more granular in some of the things that we can talk about. Without also not only talking to Sister Gross, do I have a little bit of idea of what it is you're trying to do here. I've had the pleasure of talking with Justin Bibb just a few weeks ago with some of the things that he's trying to do within the county, and the potential partnerships that we can have with workforce investment, and hopefully we can create some great alignments between what it is you're trying to do. Relative to the first question that Sister Gross provided us in particular was what type of post-secondary education financial assistance is most important to be included in the included in the Cuyahoga County program. There's a couple things that I did want to talk about relative to that. One is that whether it be merit-based, need-based, or loans or other kinds of programs, I think that a needs-based program is going to be very important because financial means is often the greatest deterrent in pursuing further education, and state-sponsored programs such as TANF, WIA, offer lower income adults training opportunities, but their access is very restricted. So the income guidelines are so strict and so restricted that it's very narrow, although in Cuyahoga County a large population of individuals who are who qualify for those kinds of programs. The long-term unemployed, mostly those in need of retraining, may select short-term certificate programs, and John talked about that a little bit, which are ineligible for financial aid. So that's another consideration that you should consider. And while scholarships should be based on need, suitability must also be taken into account, i.e. level of relevant experience, evidence of full engagement in re-employment, so forth, because a lot of times our labor market statistics are based upon people who are out of the job market or recently looking, but it doesn't really cover the long-term chronically unemployed, which is something that the LMI statistics don't cover, but it's relative to a large population here, in particular within the county. I think loan forgiveness is a very important kind of an aspect really dealing with this, because once an individual defaults on a student loan, the options for financing education are drastically limited. Many students can't return back to school, even community colleges, which are the most affordable option because their accounts have been flagged. And if their debt was resolved, they could return to school on their own. So that's another program thing that you should be thinking about in terms of the scholarships you provide, whether or not there has been default or debt relative to that student. The kind of post-secondary education that we've seen within workforce investment that's most important for county residents or the county program to support. Clearly, vocational training is very important. It's more accessible. It has a shorter-term option that offers immediate return on investment. Training should also offer stackable certificates so students can realize career pathways, whether they're working through a career and advancing in the career. The education that they're getting, the scholarships that provides, should give them a pathway to other opportunities, and that should be something that should be in consideration. I think that financial assistance should be capped to reflect the average cost of quality, yet affordable training program. Clearly, there are some programs that do have quality, but there are some that are not affordable. So you want to make sure that there's an appropriate balance between quality and affordability. And clearly, there are a lot of options that students would have within the county to pursue some kind of training or with their scholarships, post-secondary education. And I think that even when we talk about affordability and kind of capping costs, there should be some flexibility to pursue costlier programs. But, students must submit some kind of evidence of a means to supplementing the remaining balance if they're going to move forward on those accounts, because clearly we do not want to have people hanging out there with opportunities and not able to fulfill them. Two-year degree programs are greatly increase marketability and entry into higher paying professional positions, and it also gives students a little bit more flexibility to pursue four-year options for education. We've also seen that local employers need a readily accessible pipeline for qualified skilled workers. As we talked about companies who are even looking to move into Northeast Ohio. When Team NEO, we work very closely with them, and they're really looking for a readily available workforce. So it's important that in consideration that we look at having folks stay within the county or within the region to make sure that we can build an employer base here in the county in the area. And we do have an abundance of high quality education institutions ready and willing to train this workforce. How important is it for recipients of post-secondary to receive post-secondary financial assistance that they remain in the region? Clearly, we do not want to, and we cannot afford to invest in a disappearing workforce. We need human capital, and we need the revenue and the tax base here in Northeast Ohio. So that is of, in my opinion, supreme importance. And the exit of skilled, qualified recipients represents a significant loss to the region and the human capital revenue that it has. The last thing I'd like to share with you today is, one of the questions that Sister Gross asked us to respond to is, how is it important that the Cuyahoga County Post-Secondary Financial Assistance Program target in-demand disciplined occupations? And clearly at Workforce Investment, we feel that that's critically important. Our system has transitioned to a demand-facing model. And partially because of necessity. Just in fiscal years of 07, 08, our budget was about $15 million. Now we've got a budget about $9.3 million, so we had to be very smart about what our budget was. Clearly, we focused a lot of our training dollars back then on the individuals coming in the door, but now once we faced our focus on the demand, employers, not only have we lost money coming in from the federal government through the state, through the county, but our performance has increased at least 100% in the number of outcomes, participants who've gone through our programs, because we work directly with companies. This significant shift is very important for us because not only we don't look at labor market data as much as we do employer data. We've called on over 23,000 companies. And in those companies, we're seeing exactly what they need real time, and the kind of workers they need real time, and the kind of skills that they need real time. And so we've looked at some of the sectors that are coming out that are very important are healthcare, manufacturing, construction, and some of the other things that we'll talk about. But there are a lot of opportunities that we're seeing that are out there, and clearly when you follow the demand, you're going to have more success in the outcomes as opposed to getting people all dressed up with no place to go. Back when we had $15 and even $20 million in our workforce investment system, people would come in and say they want to do whatever they want to do, and we would pay for that. And the results of that were marginal at absolute best. But now we're looking at, okay, what are the demands of the economy? What are the demands of companies? And then we're stacking the training dollars and the opportunities up against those, and we're receiving a lot of success. So I think it's very important that you begin to look at a demand-driven kind of a focus, as opposed to here's what it is that I'd like to be when I grow up. Only from the standpoint, when you look at the county resources, you want to get the best return on investment. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been instructed that we're going to have all of the presentations before we have questions. And who's next? Mr. Ross?
Having spent years with, under the direction of the Sisters of St. Joseph, I will also stick with the questions, and within my allotted time. I'm Pete Ross. I'm the Vice President for Enrollment Services at Cuyahoga Community College, and I thank you for allowing me to provide some input into your process and some ideas on where I might have some thoughts, as this is my 37th year in post-secondary education, on where possibly we might want to look to enhance what we're doing with our students. Just before I start answering the questions, a little context about the college. These numbers are very current. I was actually writing them down as they were coming in. This is our 15th day census reporting to the state, so we had some very current numbers. This year at the college, 72% of our students are on federal financial aid programs. Accounts for Pell Grant's $66 million in federal financial aid. Another $17.3 million are outstanding in federal subsidized loans, and about another $15 million in unsubsidized loans that our students take out. So roughly around $30 million in loans coming out. Work study, which was one of our bigger programs last year, was around $2 million last year, has been cut by the federal government. We received work study funds of about $900,000 this year. Work study is an extremely effective way to get students both financial aid and also work experience as they're going through the system. So we felt that loss quite a bit. So as then I look to the questions, one other piece of background. 80% of our students this term, fall term, are from Cuyahoga County. Okay, so we do, in fact, educate many citizens of Cuyahoga County out of the 31,000 plus students that we have there this term. So about the same amount stay in the county when they graduate, which is a good thing. First question is, what type of post-secondary education financial assistance is most important? I believe they're all important, just based on our numbers and where the students are coming from. I don't know that we can differentiate between scholarships, federal financial aid. Students need help to go to school. That's just the bottom line for our students. But I do think that goal-oriented students, students who have a reason to complete courses, to complete a degree, to complete a training program, and stay within the county and the workforce, are more likely to do so. We've found that on a number of occasions as we look at our federal financial aid default information, that the students who get degrees and go to work within the region that they graduated from are more likely to pay back their federal loans. Would be no dissimilar information, I wouldn't think, with a loan forgiveness program if the county was looking at second dollar in is what I would call it. Federal financial aid is going to cover the bulk of what the student needs to pay in most instances, but there are gaps in the student's funding in many times. What we see from students when we do exit surveys with them, as to why they left college prior to finishing, why they left the term prior to finishing the class even, it had very little to do many times with the financial reasons or the academic reasons. Many times it's childcare. They lost their child care services, mother, father passed away. They could not continue a school without that kind of child care services. Federal financial aid and scholarships currently do not cover that. Transportation issues, food issues, basic necessities have to be met before they could go to school. So many of those things that are that we can't cover at the institution, might be a good place to look as we're looking to expand support to students as they go to college. And then again, give them a goal orientation. As they finish, as they stay in the county, those loans might be able to be forgiven. So the money's out up front, but it's going to come back to them in the end. So the benefit to that we've seen in other areas that have done this is that the students graduate without a lot of debt burden. So they're able to be productive and get into the workforce quicker at a job more likely to be relevant to their training. How important is it for the recipients of post-secondary financial assistance to attend a training program, college, or university? Everything we read and see, there was a study out of Georgetown University just 2 years ago that linked economics of the region with college attainment. Every step up the ladder, as you get a high school diploma, as you get a certificate, as you get a GED, provides more income to the family and to the area and the tax base that returns it. It also provides a great deal of incentive for the student to continue their education as they see their income rise and they see the possibilities open up. Again, how important is it that the Cuyahoga County Post-Secondary Financial Assistance Program target in-demand disciplines and occupations? I think it's absolutely imperative if we want to convince the youth of the county and the individuals who are going back for training that what they're going to get trained for, they're going to have the opportunity to get a job in. I think as we've talked here, the manufacturing industries, the healthcare industries are extremely strong right now in this particular area. Those are our markets. But there are other industries we might want to look to target to bring in. But I think if we're going to train individuals in any field, we have to give them a reasonable expectation that there are jobs out there for that field. So I think it's very important that as we look to target these. I agree fully with my colleague from the manufacturing sector. One of the shortcomings, I think, of federal financial aid is they don't cover workforce training. You cannot get financial aid if it's not a credit-bearing course. It gets very difficult for individuals who need short-term training to get those certificates to build on because they want to go to work quickly and get back to work and look to the future. It's difficult for them to find the funding to do that. I think that's a significant gap. So in the big picture, because I'm almost at my 5 minutes, I think we really got to look at a shift into thinking on how we fund students, and we fund on outcomes instead of in-go. We don't fund them from the beginning, we fund them at the end. Federal financial aid and loans will take care of the cost of education in most instances. Certainly will cover it at Cuyahoga Community College. To answer your question, $91.62 a credit hour, so it would be about $3,000 for a full year, 2 terms. That's cost of books and tuition, roughly.
$6,000 for an associate's degree.
Roughly. I mean, it varies a little bit. That's roughly it. So it is affordable, but again, some of that has to be built on loans. And if you can give a student an assurance that they're going to have their loans forgiven, if they do what's needed to be done, you give them a goal and a reason to complete, I think you're going to find a much better educated workforce and a much stronger student population out there finishing their degrees as they move along.
Great, thank you. Ms. Williams?
Thank you. I went to Catholic girls' schools, and I'm not quite as disciplined. I have to say, I was in the principal's office several times in my high school career. So I am addressing Sister Joanne's questions, but in a broader way, and really from the point of view of the role I currently hold, which is as a funder, and the role that you're putting yourselves in. I'm Helen Williams. I'm Program Director for Education at the Cleveland Foundation. We invest around $8 million a year in educational endeavors, not including scholarships. Most recently, we've been working on creating a portfolio of excellent schools in Cleveland with a focus on high schools that are preparing students for careers and college, the John Hay campus, the MC STEM Squared School, the Design Lab, and are supporting the efforts at Max Hayes to really reinvent that school into a 21st century learning environment. I want to take my time to really address 2 things. The first is some suggested guiding principles that I think you should consider as you make this very important decision about how to spend $7 million a year, which is a sizable amount of money. And then, and really based on sort of my experience as a funder in some of these areas. And then secondly, talk a little bit about a program we've been involved with about creating a systemic effort to really increase higher education attainment in the area. So first, and this is very quick, I really think there are 4 principles that you should consider to guide your decision making. And the 3 speakers before me have alluded to these, in very specific ways. So these are kind of general guiding principles. But I think you need to base any action or decision on a really in-depth understanding of the environment that you're working in today and the environment that will exist in the future. And I think you need to look at the international scope, the national scope, and the local scope, not just local, but what are the emerging industries around the world? What is happening? What are the trends? Secondly, I think you need to have, in terms of this environmental scan, of a kind of deep understanding about what are the workforce educational systems that exist in our community, and there are several. And to understand what's working and what's not working, and how to leverage your dollars to get the things that aren't working to work better. The second is, actually everybody alluded to this, particularly Quentin, is to adopt an outcomes-based approach. So set goals on the front end, not how many people are going into these programs, but how many people are actually finishing as a result of your investments. And so if you're in a job training program, how many people actually end up with jobs? If you're going to college, how many actually end up with degrees? And I think you know that less than 50% of people who start college in the country finish college. That's the national average. It's lower in our community. The third is, I think, and this is a term that is bandied about, but you need to have a theory of action about how your investments are actually going to get you the results that you're seeking. So if you make this investment in this, this is what you expect to happen, and these are the results you expect to get. And so to be thinking on the front end and every year looking at whether your investment is getting you those results. And fourthly, I think you need to use, and I alluded to this, county resources to leverage different behaviors in the institutions that are benefiting. It isn't just the students who will be benefiting, it is the actual institutions who are receiving those scholarship dollars that are benefiting. So really looking at what are the graduation rates, what are the job placement rates, and working to, if you're not getting the results you want, really working with those institutions to get different results. I think you should leverage your money to bring in additional resources. While $7 million is a lot, when you really look at the scholarship need, it's not a drop in the bucket, it's significant, but it isn't where we need to be. So how can you leverage that money to attract other money? And how do you, and I said this, impact delivery systems? So I would suggest, as you're deliberating, you look at those 4 questions.
I know we're not supposed to ask questions, but we're not sure where you came up with the $7 million from.
Isn't it $7 million a year?
And we haven't figured it out yet.
Oh, okay. I think it was in the paper, $7 million a year.
We haven't been told that yet.
Okay, sorry.
We'll take it.
Okay.
Madam President, I might be able to just elucidate that point very quickly, and that is, when I gave the State of the County address, we talked about having about $16 million that we were going to try to use for initiatives. $8 million it was projected was going to be used to float the $100 million bond issuance for an economic development fund. The balance of the money was for purposes, the balance of the money could be used for other initiatives, which we talked about doing things in law enforcement, which we know we have about $1 million law enforcement initiative this year. And we also talked about having an early childhood education, UPK expansion, and we also talked about college scholarship access. But we've never we had never identified a specific number dedicated to education at
All
that
right,
point.
thank you.
Yeah. I think that I read it, and I think that I'm hoping,
Okay.
knowing the need. The second thing I wanted to talk about, and I can't talk about this in too much detail because it isn't public yet, but it's beginning to become more public, is an initiative that our foundation and several other organizations, including the county executive, have been involved with the mayor. And this is really to try and create a community plan to raise educational attainment in our community. And in December of 2010, the mayor called together a small group of people, some foundation people, people from CSU, the school district, Tri-C, College Now, and the county to come up with some recommendations about how do we create a more systemic approach to increasing college readiness, access, and persistence. And so we worked for 6 months. We looked at the research, we conducted interviews, we looked at a lot of data from the institutions that we were working with, and came up with a set of recommendations that we presented to the mayor in July. And he accepted those, and we're moving forward with the planning as we speak. Our recommendations were really based on a profound understanding after we looked at the data, and I think this is really important, about how much ground the U.S. is really losing when it comes to educational attainment. And if you look at this graph, you have it in front of you, and you look at the U.S., which is the second from the last, and you look at the green bar, which represents the percentage of individuals in the age group of 25 to 34 that have earned a college degree. You see that we are the only country who that age group, the percentage is less than the older age group. And when you see those, what the trends are, that the trends are in other countries, more and more young people are earning degrees. In our country, it's flat. And I think it's, important because 2/3 of all new jobs require some post-secondary education. And secondly, when you look at the actual overall degree holding in the county, less than 30% of citizens in Cuyahoga County hold a bachelor or a associate's degree, and in the city of Cleveland, it's less than 8%. And you look at these figures for other countries, and you realize we're in a global marketplace and that we're not producing the talent that we need to produce. Secondly, the thing that came out of the work that we did is that no single system can really solve this problem. And John talked about this, but there's an issue of, are kids leaving high school ready for college and career? Do they have the knowledge and skills that's responsible of K-12 education and community organizations that support those kids? Do they have, in terms of college access, the information they need to make the right choices about careers, about college? Do they have access to the resources? Do they have the support? Because many lower income kids really need a nudge, really need support. And the third is college persistence, which, as I said, is fairly low in our country. Are the institutions that accept kids, based on their standards, are they doing the things in that institution to keep those students there? And as I said, less than 50% of students who enter college graduate from college, so we're losing 50%. So what we recommended to the mayor briefly is that he actually launch a higher education compact of Greater Cleveland, that he bring together key institutions, which are the 15 colleges and universities that enroll 80% of our students from Cleveland and Greater Cleveland. He bring together initially the Cleveland Metropolitan School District and support organizations, which include government, foundations, and organizations that work with these kids into a single compact. That we start with Cleveland initially, we expand to the inner ring suburbs and parochial schools after the first year or two. Secondly, that, and the group developed this, that we adopt a comprehensive dashboard to measure progress. percentage of kids who graduate from high school, percentage of kids who go on to college, percentage of kids who persist from year 1 to year 2, percentage of students, I shouldn't say kids, who complete, and then within the access, persistence, and readiness, a set of indicators that measures those things, like ACT scores, finishing FAFSA, those sorts of things. The third is that this wouldn't be a whole new fancy organization, that essentially it would have a lean organizational structure that focuses the work in the organizations that are working with the students, and that those organizations agree to be part of a partnership council, they sign a letter of commitment, and they develop action plans that actually are going to move those numbers and agree to share their data. And finally, that there were several areas that we could not complete planning in, that we think planning has to continue. And one of those is the development of a community scholarship program, like a Promise program, like Kalamazoo Promise, or Pittsburgh Promise, with different dynamics that would include the city, would include the county, would include philanthropy, would include the private sector donations in one place, that leverage those dollars in much more precise ways. That secondly, that we expand the compact, and finally, that we figure out in the long run where the data management and analysis, which institution it's going to reside in. So where we are is that the launch of the compact is planned for October 6th. The county executive staff has been involved in this from day one. That the recruitment of the compact partners is underway. The mayor and the county executive met with the 15 college presidents and asked them to join the compact, and they are signing up. There was a meeting yesterday with nonprofit organizations, and so that is underway, and that the permanent organizational infrastructure is being put in place. The coordinator's been hired. The foundations are pledging to, are, I think, committing to over $200,000 to support the organization, and will be housed at College Now in its first year. I'd just like to end by saying I think this is a huge opportunity for the council to be a huge player in this, and that I urge you to look at this initiative, not reinvent the wheel, but really think about how you as a body can add value and move it forward in a way that really makes a significant difference over the next 10 years in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Ms. Friedman?
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here and looking forward to our dialogue. I don't have a PowerPoint in 5 minutes. I do better if I just talk, otherwise it'll go too long. But I do have a packet that I think every one of you has, and it is loaded with data. And I think you can hear from my colleagues that this issue around post-secondary school attainment is very data-driven, and so all of us kind of share the passion for that. Let me tell you just a little bit about College Now, if those of you don't know anything about us. Until last February, we were called Cleveland Scholarship Program, and so you may have known us by that name. We are the oldest, so therefore the first comprehensive college access organization in the country. To this day, we are still one of the top 5 largest. So we have been working with lots of students over very, very many years. I've been with the organization a little over a year, and I have a history in not-for-profit management for kind of urban economic development issues. College Now serves 20,000 students a year, and we serve them in a couple ways. We really do 2 things. Most of our work is in Cuyahoga County, about 90% of it, and there's a list of schools that we work with. A lot of the work is with low-income students, but we work with everybody, including adults and moderate-income students and higher-income students, because we do something very comprehensive. We work in 2 ways. The first way, and I would tell you probably the most important way, and this is part of what I'm sharing with you because I hope you'll think about it in a comprehensive way, is we work to give students college access counseling and financial aid counseling to ensure that every student winds up in their best fit post-secondary option. You've heard from my colleagues that there's lots of options. We know as a community we are undereducating our students, whether it's with technical degrees, bachelor's degrees, associate's degrees, or PhDs. As you've heard, 60% of the jobs that are being created are going to require some kind of post-secondary credential. And this is in the packet, all the unemployment rates, poverty rates, long-term life potential earnings, it's all correlated back specifically to what kind of post-secondary credentials do you have. And we know that the long-term impact on this community on raising attainment is tremendous. Probably the most important sustainable play we can make in terms of sort of changing our economic vitality. So our work, I have a staff of 70 people. 35 of them never show up at my office except once in a blue moon. They are literally embedded in schools. They start working with students on moving through the process of fit, getting there, paying for it, and staying there. We help them with career tests. We help them with interests. We help them with course selection. We pay for their ACTs. We pay for their applications if there's a fee. We help them with the essays. We work through the whole process. We make sure we're often the, not necessarily the caring adult. Most kids have a caring adult, but we're often the knowledgeable adult. Many of the kids we work with are first generation college goers, and they don't know how to maneuver through this process. The most important piece of the work is the leverage we can help these students get on the financial aid side. So we work with students, and for a low-income student, we define that by somebody who's Pell eligible. That means their family income is in the $60,000 a year range for a family of 4. If they are college ready, which means they have a 2.5 grade point average and at least about a 28, we'll look at them at 18 in terms of it. We will help them find dollars. If we work with them, we can typically find a kid about $60,000 towards a 4-year education. That is for a low-income student. The problem really hits when you have a moderate-income student or a middle-income student or a higher-income student. They get very little. The low-income student can do much better. Very important that every dollar that we find them, we don't put our dollars in until we know that every other dollar has been put in. Kalamazoo, which you've heard about, puts first dollars in. I would not see the wisdom for this council on something like that because there's a lot of dollars that can be brought for students depending where they want to go and what they want to do. So we work, as I said, on the advice side. We get them all the way to college and then we stick with them. We continue to provide them, at least for the kids that we fund, we continue to provide them with advice and mentors. The average college graduation rate for a low-income student is something like 23% for on-time graduation. Our students are almost 70%. So we have a lot of experience working with it. And of course, the goal is to get them out, not just to get them in. The second thing we do is we provide scholarship dollars. We work with 20,000 students a year. We can only fund about 3,000 because we don't have enough money. But one of the figures in your packet is that we know that of the students we do fund, plus the ones we can't fund because we just didn't have enough, right now, alone today in Cuyahoga County, there's an $8.5 million gap just for that small pool of kids. And remember, this is only the lowest income kids because we don't fund moderate income students, not because we don't think it's deserving. We don't have enough resources. So to sum up, because I know you want to get to questions, our experience has shown us that it is very important to build a pipeline approach that ensures not only academic readiness, but that they're college ready, that they've had the advice, the tools, the resources, and the counseling to make sure that they are going to the right place, the one where they fit on a whole bunch of levels, that they get continued advice, and that they do have as much money as you can bring to bear. And that's what creates the success. But you can't, like we know the Pittsburgh Promise, which is quite rich. The students can get up to $10,000 a year to go to any school in Pennsylvania, private or public, if they went to a Pittsburgh public high school. It's a great community development building tool. It's a $300 million program. It'll fund it for 30 years. But they did not build this pipeline. And so what's happening is they're finding they're about year 3 or 4 of the program. The kids aren't aren't being retained and they're not finishing. And so that's the kind of thing why when you hear all this comprehensive higher education compact and work together, it takes a village to move these students from, high school or even junior high school all the way through career. And I think that's what I hope you'll look at. And so with that, I think I'll end my remarks and I think, open it up to whatever questions you all have.
Ms. Cowell?
I can ask of the whole body, correct? Yes. Okay. Want to go back to Peter Ross? A Tri-C, correct?
Correct.
And this is kind of piggybacking off of what Ms. Williams stated. How much focus is really given by the counselors at Tri-C in regards to career-oriented goals that match what is needed in our global economy today? Because being a parent of 2 kids in school, I don't think the counselors really focus on, they just let the kid come in there and say what they want to be instead of focusing on what our job market needs today. So I'm with Ms. Williams on that one.
I guess the first part I'd say is that the average age of our student is 29 years old. So we're many times working with the parent and not the child. We do have a fair population of direct from high school students, and there are a number of options for the students to explore careers. And with 31,000 students and probably 40 counselors total, it would be very difficult to say that every student gets a comprehensive career pathway. Most of the students, I don't want to say most, many of the students that come to us do have either one of 2 goals. They're either pretty well set on the associate degree track they want to take, health careers being probably one of the biggest tracks they're going into, or they're looking to transfer on for a baccalaureate degree. So our focus in the advising centers really is to help them get to those goals. We do have Key Career Center, which does extensive amount of work with the students as they come in to help understand what the job market looks like, to prepare them for the job market, the interviewing skills, the resume writing that they need. There's at least a half a dozen courses they can take at the credit level, and then probably workshops that go along with that do explore career options for the students. So it's all available. Is it mandatory? No. I mean, again, because the average age of the student is 29, we're working with adults for the most part. We try to offer the opportunity for them to explore. Does that help?
That helps. I know Mayor Jackson a couple years back had a scholarship fund for new high school students to go, and it got beat up by the plain dealer that it didn't work so well. So that's why my question is, you do get some high school students.
Well, we do, certainly, yes.
Colleges should focus on trying to gear those young minds and what's being offered in the world today.
I think to the mayor's defense, we've had a number of conversations about the program, and I guess it's a matter of interpretation on how it worked well.
That's great.
I mean, because we did get a significant increase in students from Cleveland Municipal School District that year, and their graduation and retention rate was higher than our counterpart rates. So I think the program worked pretty well from our perspective, and I think from the mayor's perspective.
Yes, Ms. Allen.
Can I comment? I also think that the high schools have to do a better job of really focusing the kids and connecting their high school experience with the future. And I think that's what Max Hayes is trying to do. I think some of the STEM schools that are being started in the John Hay campus schools, that it's giving students an opportunity to explore potential careers early on and to think about it. And I think K-12 has a responsibility for that as well, as colleges.
I mean, I think as Helen said in her remarks, that we have to look at the realities of the job market and where we're at and really understand what that is. I think it gets very difficult if you talk to a student and you're sitting in an office with them. I fortunately spent 23 years as director of counseling, so I had a lot of direct contact with students. But to tell a student, you know, you'd like to go into an STNA program, that's a great program. Sorry, there's no financial aid for that program. Or you want to go into an advanced manufacturing program, precision machining. I'm sorry, there's no financial support for those programs. That's where it becomes difficult and the student opts to go in a different direction, because if they are eligible for a full Pell, they're going to get $5,800 this year on a full Pell if they take credit coursework. If they go in a different direction, there is no support for that. So I think there's some balance there between, you know, what you want to help the student with and help the student understand where the job market might be, and the realities of, I think, sometimes what our federal government's willing to look at for funding.
All right, thank you.
Two more questions. Then I'll be
We
done.
only got till 6 o'clock.
Okay, this question is for Ms. Williams. Would your organization be willing to participate in a matching fund when we decide on our number that we can?
I can't speak for it. We would certainly entertain a proposal. I mean, we're a community foundation. People can, you know, organizations can come to us. We do currently provide about $4 million in scholarships a year through donor funds, but we certainly would entertain it.
And just one other question for Ms. Friedman. How do you find your students that participate in your College Now program?
What do you mean, how do I find, what do you mean?
Well,
You mean how?
You mentioned you have about 20,000 students, but they're usually low-income students, so is there?
Not all, not all. How do they come to us? Oh, well, for the 20,000 I'm describing in that case, we are embedded in the school. So we're in different schools, different amounts of time. So through the generosity of CMSD and the Cleveland Foundation and a couple other foundations, we have presence in every CMSD high school every day. There is literally, you can find a College Now employee there every single day that's working with the kids, pulling them out of class, going into the English room, working on essays, working with the counselors, highly aligned with what's going on with the Cleveland Goes to College curriculum that CEO Gordon has put in. We are in other schools. Sometimes it's 70 days, like Cleveland Heights, we're there 70 days, and sometimes it's 10 days at Beechwood or 10 days at Westlake. Sometimes people are surprised, why are you in Beechwood or Westlake? When we're in suburban schools, we are there on a contract where over the long history, the work our counselors do, particularly in the financial aid counseling and looking for scholarships, is highly different than just plain college guidance. My kids went to Laurel and University School. They had great college guidance counseling. There was no financial aid counseling whatsoever. Nobody there knew how to fill out a FAFSA. Without the FAFSA being completed, the student is like all dressed up and nowhere to go. And for many families, low-income CEOs, they can't get the FAFSA done. So our staff is sometimes brought in just to do FAFSA work in schools all across. So it's a little different in every place. Our folks are pretty creative and they're pretty good at attracting bodies. We now have at CMSD, there's now a software program called Naviance that the Cleveland Foundation and CMSD brought into the school that will help take our human capital and expand it multiple fold, because it helps the students really go through this career testing and skills and tracks everything, and it should be a wonderful tool.
Thank you, Ms. Cowan. Mr. Miller?
Madam Chair, I have just one, and it's to Ms. Williams, and my question is are you recommending this compact is going to get going in the next month or two? Are you suggesting that the county consider partnering with this group, and as opposed to setting up the county's own separate program, that we might partially fund a larger, more comprehensive program that might come out of this compact? Is that what you're suggesting?
I wouldn't go that far. I think what I'm suggesting is that I think what I'm suggesting is that there is this effort that is building the infrastructure, is bringing together those institutions that have responsibility for educating kids and getting them through the system, whether they're the not-for-profits or the actual educational institutions. That the group that recommended this recognized that what was missing was a financial component. And unlike what they did in Pittsburgh, what we're saying is you need to build the infrastructure and then the financial component needs to come after and be aligned. I don't know what the scholarship program should look like, you know, in the community, but I think it has to be coherent. So it doesn't have to be one program. It could be one program and that it funds many different things and people put in, different entities put in money. That's one way to go. Another way to go would be people take different pieces of it and they coordinate it. I don't know what it should look like ultimately. I'm just urging that in your consideration of this, that you look at this whole picture and that you have discussions and work with the city and other organizations that bring resources to the table, and so that we can leverage and get more bang for our dollars. But I'm not saying, you know, there should be one fund or there should be three. I just think there needs to be coordination and discussion, and I think it should be planned and thoughtful, is my suggestion.
Okay,
Council-
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schrein.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Combs, you had, I think both you and Mr. McCorvey had referred to things like stackable certificates out there. Is there a cost, you know, associated with obtaining those certificates and things of that nature?
I'm not sure I'm the best person to address that. I don't think there's some cost in designing them so that the different certificates that a person might be going for follow one after the other. It's more of a design question. But the person that's achieving those certificates will have to pay something for the training.
Yeah,
Is that what
is there
you're
a fee
referring to?
or a charge, I assume, associated with obtaining all those credentials and stackable certificates?
I think it's more or less the fee of as opposed to the alignment between the educational institutions. So when you think about the compact of the 15 colleges and universities, when you think about training programs, when you think about Tri-C, when you think about some of the allied training programs, it's making sure that they're aligned, working to accept the credentials and the training that each one of those other institutions provide. So that's more of an alignment between those educational institutions around the individuals as opposed to their separate educational initiatives.
Yeah, I believe your comment was that you were measuring competencies, not necessarily, one of the two of you was measuring a competency, that the job was looking for competencies as opposed to necessarily some other degree or something of that nature.
Yeah, Peter has an example of the stackable certificates, but I think it was my comment about competencies, that the skill standards are very much, usually they're competency basis. What do you actually know how to do? So in a machining operation, can you can you set up a machine safely? Can you make a certain kind of part within certain tolerances, and you actually have to make the part in order to get the certificate? That was my comment. But in terms of stackable certificates, I think Peter can respond to that.
Yeah, okay. This is another piece to it. So if you have the answer on the stackable certificates, I wanted to comment a little bit about what I'm learning from employers.
The concept of stackable certificates came out of the Ohio Board of Regents a few years back. And the idea is, if you have a non-credit training program, a workforce development program, and there's a certain set of outcomes in that program, if you go through a non-credit STNA, a State Tested Nursing Assistant program, how does that certificate stack up against your career pathway to LPN and RN? We don't want to make the student retake outcomes that they've already completed, so how do we recognize that certificate? So your answer on cost, it's cost for the certificate training. The idea is, though, equate that to some outcome that gives them a pathway to the next level of the job in that career, so they can continue going without having to step back and repeat.
You indicated there's a high likelihood that would not be Pell fundable, some of those steps
That is
on the way to get there. So We have a gap, we have a need, credential, competency, and a gap with no funding.
That's
If
correct.
I'm following the track that was just laid out there.
Well, let me, I have a few comments about this because I've been dealing recently with some of the largest employers. The largest employers often will pay for those kind of certificate programs. It's their investment in their own workforce. And I've been now to two of our largest employers, both large hospitals, and have had the conversations. They've brought us in because they're starting to, they have to kind of go down two paths at once. They need to get people trained to do the job of today as quickly as possible. So let's call that a nursing type certificate. And they are likely to pay for it either directly or through a tuition reimbursement. The concern they're starting to have is that the technology and the advanced level of critical thinking is moving so fast that they are looking to put more of their either current employees or our young students into programs that at least get them the associate's degree in the medical field of nursing, or even then transfer to a BA, because the concern is that if you train them for the one job, yes, that helps them today and they need to do it, but that you have to be thinking about the job in 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, and 10 years, because none of us could have imagined the extent to which we're all addicted to our smartphones, as an example, or something like that. So what I think these large employers are starting to do is go down both paths. They've got to move as many people through the technical certificate that may or may not be Pell eligible and do that quickly, but it's their preference that if they can also move them to at least the associate's degree and or the 4-year degree, that they feel that's more of the giving them fishing rod instead of the fish.
And how many of the large employers are going to, what's the percentage of them that's going to be employing our populate workforce versus the small employer?
Well, I'm not sure I know the answer to the question, but I do know that two.
I think it's significantly trending the other direction. So.
Well, excuse me. Let me just say
Sorry
this.
about that.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't
mean,
want us to be following the large employer as our single track for
but here's what I do know.
Program.
I do know that we have two employers that employ probably 75 or 80,000 people. And I know that at least, and two of them have hospitals that have floors that are unopened that they just built because they do not have enough nurses today. So I can't answer about the small employers, but what I do know is there are some really good jobs out there, and those employers won't keep growing in Cleveland, Ohio, or Cuyahoga County if we can't make absolutely sure that they've got a trained workforce that can take the next job.
Does your program that they alluded to pay for that gap as far as the credentialing and
we do, to the extent that we have the money. As I said, we pay for any program that's Pell eligible. We do not pay for certificate programs that are not Pell eligible because our experience with having done it in the past, and we just stopped doing it about a year ago, is that the long-term persistence rates were not very good. And so that the quality control sometimes, and I'm certainly not talking about Tri-C because we send a lot of students to Tri-C, so we sort of stopped doing it. But if it's Pell eligible, we will pay for it. But we don't have enough money to go around. As I said last year, we just on low income, not moderate income, if we had another $8.5 million, we could have fully filled the need without them having a lot of debt.
The certificate program that Mr. Ross alluded to from the Board of Regents would not be fundable.
No, that should be Pell eligible.
It's not Pell eligible, though.
Okay, well then I don't know the specifics.
First level, but then the second. and
Right.
third
Some of them are, some of them aren't. It just
Okay,
depends.
so at this point in time, your program would not support this?
We support things that are Pell eligible.
Now, Mr. Shaw, one of the things we do with Workforce is that we do have individual training accounts where we can stack money up against an individual in a demand occupation where there is a demand for that work with that. The other program that we do have is that we can actually subsidize for part of their wages for a company for retraining those individuals and upskilling their services. But clearly, there's a limited amount of resources that we have available.
That's on your workforce readiness, but not.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure I understand. Thank you.
Mr. Gallagher?
Thank you, Madam President. You know, sitting here listening, and I know, Ms. Williams, you're kind of stuck with the Cleveland, the inner-ring suburbs, and then the parochial schools, but our borders are Cuyahoga County, so this has to be more of a broad thing. But I think if we're looking at the Pittsburgh Promise and the problem, I guess, that I think I heard that they're not getting the kids through, with the dollars in first, what do you think about a dollars in last kind of scenario?
I think, sir, that can be successful to sort of split it. Remember, if they get all the dollars at the end, they may not be able to go because they still have to pay as they go. So a loan forgiveness program or something could work in part. I think part of the reason those students aren't finishing base, and I think Helen can speak to this, is the fit wasn't there. They didn't have all the other pieces to be sure the student, like as an example, I can tell you that one of the councilmen sent a constituent to us a couple weeks ago, and he was about to go to the University of Akron, wanted to do that, needed another $11,000, really was a marginal student. And so those students, the ones on the bubble, if they don't have enough money, they have to work extra jobs, and then they for sure can't finish. And we stopped the presses and sat down with the family and just said, look, your student is better off spending another 6 months in his job, going to Tri-C for free, go for a year or two for free, not have any debt burden so they can really focus. The student only had a 14 on the ACT, which is really below college ready, but with some remedial could do it and then transfer and then get some money. So see, it's more convoluted than that to make sure they stay. And that's what Pittsburgh didn't do. They didn't build this infrastructure around all these partners, making sure the student really wound up in the right place with the best fit, with the most chance of academic success and financial success.
It just seems to be something, to me anyhow, kind of sexy about a kid that's going to go out there and just put the skin in the game and do it. And a kid like that, if he follows the program that you put before him, is putting the skin in the game and doing it. And that's, I think, worth every nickel that you put into it, as opposed to these kids with the dollar first in that walk away when the money goes. And we've seen it time, and I'm sure you have seen it way more than any of us have ever even dreamed of seeing it, and everything else involved with that. But I thought the dollars at the end not only would help the students, because there's many of us still with college loans still out there, and I'm doing that with my son now, and I'll be probably ended up paying those. But it just seems that there has to be a way to get those kids that really want it.
Yeah. You know, some people are experimenting in some colleges with giving money, not allowing people to continue with their financial aid if they don't complete a certain number of courses, for instance. So there's incentives built in along the way. And I absolutely agree with you that we have to look at the way we distribute money, because it does not incentivize students to finish. They take the money up front. Some of them use it for their families. I mean, there's huge issues around all of this.
Well, I just envision if back in the day when I was going and my parents knew that there was $5,000 at the end of my academic rainbow, it would get done.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's a good point. And the other thing we know, and part of this higher education compact has been structured, that people are opting in because they're willing to sort of self-report and take on the responsibility, because we know that for every student, and there's 12 of you here, every one of you are different individuals, and you might do better at a different school because they're going to have the resources. Remember, particularly low income, first generation college goers, the academic readiness is one problem, the financial wherewithal is another, but the fit, the services on campus that are going to support that student are tremendously important to their long-term success, and that has all to do with this kind of guidance piece, and making sure they're where they're going to be able to be successful, and they've got resources.
Mr. Jones?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mrs. Williams, and this actually is for everyone, but it's based off of the comments from Mrs. Williams. Your four criteria or guiding principles, one was a theory of action, what you expect to happen. Have you thought about those with felonies on their record and what we expect to happen to them?
It's funny, we just had actually a proposal meeting today, and one of and we actually talked about felony offenders and jobs and so on around some work we're doing with the Evergreen Cooperative and so on. And I think that we have to figure out ways that higher education, post-secondary education, people who didn't finish high school, get their GED, that are pathways for them to get the next level of education. I think, something like, I think it's 80% of people in prison are people who did not finish high school. And so, I think we have to be serious about that. And I think the things that Councilman Schron are talking about in terms of having very clear articulated pathways. If I do this, if I get a GED, then I can do this. If I do this, then I can do this. That people have to begin to think about careers, and choices they make today will lead to this and that. And I think while the stackable certificates is a beginning direction of that, it is not well articulated. And I do think the issue of public money to support education programs that lead to jobs that right now aren't Pell eligible because the institute, either the degree doesn't it doesn't fit, or the institution that's providing it doesn't fit. It can be either thing. And there has been really sort of poor performance, as you pointed out, from many of these, of particularly the profit organizations that provide these kind of services. That I think that as a community, we have an opportunity to articulate pathways, to give people opportunities. But I said you have to have a plan, you have to have goals, and then you have to measure your investments about whether you're getting those results.
I think another thing to consider too are social entrepreneurship programs where you actually create opportunities that don't exist for this population. Whether it be, we've got a lot of vacant houses in the county. Can we deconstruct those in a green manner and have people do that in a way that creates a whole new industry around using that material, creating some kind of credential certification for deconstruction, and then also getting those folks to work and putting them in some kind of other capacity. So I think we need to be a little bit more innovative in creating jobs that may not even be there for that particular population that's very hard to serve.
Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm just wondering, we've heard a lot today, and we don't know how much money we're going to have, but we do know it's not going to be enough. And so, in your opinion, do you think that we should target whatever we decide to come up with, something narrowly targeted that focuses on one thing, or should we try and keep this broad so we can be flexible to maybe touch a little bit in different areas?
Just a quick personal opinion is that, a lot of the things that we're talking about, whether it be the workforce environment, the workforce ecosystem, education, we're really talking about an ecosystem, and we're talking about, well, how does an individual survive in that ecosystem? And so when you look at all of these projects and programs that are available when you do an environmental scan, I think it's important to see where it's best to fit your money. Clearly, you don't want to spread it around like peanut butter because you're going to have a very minimal effect. If you want to work on, SPAs, social planning areas, if you want to begin to work on a specific cadre of the population, I think you want to focus on something that gives you a broad-based impact, but also to make sure that you have partners like College Now, like the Cleveland Foundation, like WireNet, like Tri-C, like Workforce Investment Board, to help you in whatever it is that you construct. But I do think that you probably want to be narrow and getting the most bang for your buck, but also make sure that the ecosystem exists around the support.
I agree with everything he said. I also think you have an opportunity, and I think John Colm talked about this, of really raising community awareness about the importance of higher education, starting with K and pre-K. And you're in a unique position to do that. And so I think you should think about how you leverage what you're going to do. What are the benefits that can come from it beyond just the person receiving the money, whether it's improving the institutions that are, their track records, whether it's increasing community awareness about the importance, whether it's creating pathways that didn't exist. I think that, and I also think that it's important to figure out how you can collaborate where the whole is larger than the parts, because none of us have that much money, right? So,
Right. And I'm wondering, it seems that it would be, well, it's definitely beneficial if we were able to increase the percentage of people that are actually enrolled in college and actually having them finish. And Mr. Rossi had identified some factors that students had identified on why they had to drop out. And is there a way that we can more clearly identify things that will help get those that are already in across, above the hump to actually complete? It seems like that population of folks, they're almost there, and with a little bit of help, we can, get them through this. Or is there just a certain number, and I'm sure there is, a certain number that's just not going to complete?
I'd say that if we put the right resources and we look at the right data, we can get the students to complete. I think we've for about the last 5 years been involved in a national initiative called Achieving the Dream through the Gates Foundation, where we're really taking a look at what support services are needed for students that come in with the least amount of college preparation, least ready for college. It is, as you know, we're an open admission college, so really you put in your application, you're our student. So we have to take that student from where they come to us. So Achieving the Dream has really helped us identify a lot of the support mechanisms that we need. I think as you as a county body, think about what you can do for our population. I think how can we best leverage the dollars that are out there, the federal dollars, the state dollars, against the dollars that we may be able to apply as a county in areas of need, and how can we bring the entire social service network? And those are factors that really none of us can control in an individual's life to help those folks, because we can identify them pretty quickly through a lot of our financial aid processes, where the holes are going to be for the students, who we think may default on their loans very quickly. I mean, we've identified much of that, but how can we leverage what's available, get the information to the students and get the help to the students at a time when they need it, not after they drop out, but early on, before they get to that point, so we can support them in those endeavors. So I'm of the firm belief we can get the students through. I just think we need the services, and how do we upscale all the services to fill the entire need that we have.
I think we have Mr. Brady, Ms. Simon, Mr. Jaman have all indicated they have questions, and we could kind of move through quickly because we do have our meeting for 6 o'clock, and I think we have some public comment also, so we could kind of shorten up the questions and answers.
Right. Thank you. Yes, we are running out of time. This has been, though, a very interesting discussion, and I certainly know that we appreciate you being here, and we want to be part of, I know we would like to be part of this compact, but bouncing off, because now commenting rather than asking questions, because a lot of questions have been asked and a lot of answers have been given, but bouncing off partly of what Councilman Rogers said. We know we're only going to have limited resources, 5 to 10 million, whatever it happens to be. I think that we need to find a niche. We can't be everything to everybody. Even in this county, it's a huge, it's a big, diverse county with lots of different types of folks with different types of potential and different types of background and education. Partly probably because of the district I represent. I'm very interested in some of the concepts that I've heard Mr. Schron articulate, and the need for people who I directly represent who are unlikely to get a 4-year degree. In fact, I think in terms of that basically, our culture is focused too much on the 4-year liberal arts degree, as wonderful as it is, but it almost begs than a graduate degree and more. Representing people on the west side of Cleveland, as I do, who are desperately needing jobs and desperately needing the kind of education that will give them the new vocational jobs, that will give them the opportunity to do the new more the high-tech vocational opportunities that they will need is I think, an obvious niche, but I'm one councilman, for a focus. With that said, I have one question that I hope you can answer very short with this succinctly, because I know we don't have very much time, but Helen, you mentioned stem cell schools, and I have to admit I don't know anything about stem cell schools. Could you?
STEM schools. They're
STEM
science,
schools. Well, you can see where how I got there. Yeah.
It's not stem cells.
Well,
Science, technology, engineering.
I didn't think it was actually stem cells.
Science, technology, engineering, and math. And they're schools in which really focus on an integration of those disciplines, and students leave. It's very project-based. They leave with critical thinking skills, scientific reasoning skills, and the issues that you raise are too many students, when you really look at it, are getting liberal arts degrees and not going into the sciences. And we have Korea produces more scientists, engineers and scientists than the United States does, South Korea. And so, part of it is trying to move students in that direction.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Simon?
Just briefly, thank you, Madam President. And this is to the entire panel, but I just want to just supplement what Councilman Brady said about a new market. This council person definitely is interested in creating a new sustainable market in the county, particularly my district as well. We have Lincoln Electric with the wind turbine, potential manufacturing jobs coming in for that specific type of product, as well as the Green Neighbor Initiative in South Euclid, where we dismantled and recreated a whole green building project where we need to have people skilled to build and rebuild with green LEED certified skills. That just will be part of my focus. But from each one of you, if you could just give me the top 3 jobs that you see are most in demand, because I think all of us are going to look from a demand perspective when we look at this, at least I am, and want it, from a 4-year college, 2-year associate degree, or manufacturing. What do you see as the top 3 jobs most in demand that we could be looking at?
Just list them.
Why don't you start, Pete?
I wish I could predict those exactly, and that would be good. But I think certainly, if you look at the Cleveland market, the healthcare industry, nursing is going to face a significant shortage very soon, if there isn't already a shortage in registered nursing training. I think advanced manufacturing and precision manufacturing. I'm not talking about the manufacturing probably my father did at White Motor in a machine. I'm talking about computer-controlled manufacturing types of jobs. I also think within the next 6 to 8 years, you're going to see a mass exodus in the teaching profession. So I think the teaching areas are going to really be hit hard in both the administrative and the frontline teachers for retirements, and what we're doing at the state level with pushing the state retirement systems. So I really think that's going to impact us in a big way in our urban education.
Thank you, Mr. Ross.
Yeah, this is a tough question. I think the challenge is balancing the jobs that are out there today with the ones that are going to be there in a few years. I don't think, I think a few years back, 2 years ago or so, none of us would think that going into a manufacturing company that was heavily in the automotive industry would be a great move. But actually today, that would be a terrific move. The automotive industry is really busy right now. Another industry, not without its controversy, is the natural gas industry, which was just exploding across the country. And in order, I shouldn't say put it like that. It's booming. It's booming. No, wait a minute. But the point is, if that industry is going to succeed, it's going to have to be even more controlled, safer, more environmentally responsible than it is today, so it's going to require even greater skill, I think. So those are just a couple of examples. The wind industry is another story. That's a long story. We'll have to talk offline.
All right, quickly, Mr. McColby, in terms of listing.
I'd like to say less about demand. I mean, a few years ago, we were really high on demand sectors. I mean, healthcare, manufacturing, construction, clearly. But we've learned by actually talking to employers what the needs are. So educational systems and educational institutions, it's a market share, market demand. They want to get people in the door, want to get them degrees and other kinds of things. But companies know what they need real time. And by talking to companies, we're understanding better about, they know 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road what they need. And so we're really focusing less on demand sectors than what companies actually need. So getting that data intelligence for companies, which we do have a lot of that, and partnering with Cleveland State, begin to get a little bit more granular with that as opposed to a focus on kind of sectors of what's going to be important.
Thank you.
I have a little hybrid answer. In terms of two sectors that I think we can expect to see high demand, advanced manufacturing and manufacturing, which could use whether certificates, associate's degree, bachelor's or beyond. Health sciences in a whole variety of ways. It's not just nursing, it's everything. It's phlebotomists and it's neurosurgeons. I would say that what we hear over and over is that people need to be equipped with critical thinking skills and communication skills, writing and communication skills, no matter what they're going to do, that those will be two. And when you think about it in terms of just what we hear employers saying is they need people that can think and adapt and be flexible.
Thank you. Ms. Williams?
I'll answer it a hybrid way. I think that you should not shoot low. I think to shoot just for certificates for current jobs is a real mistake. The trend is that higher education, and it has to be more relevant, gives you less chance of unemployment and a higher chance of income. So when I look at what's out there, I think if you're going to incentivize, you should incentivize to the science, health, technical side, but incentivize people to get higher ed degrees.
Right. Mr. Germana, last but not least.
Madam Chair, I'm just trying to reflect on what I heard. Number one, reading the Plain Dealer today, all these school systems are being cut. So with that framework, what I heard today is a lot about guidance. And I saw some of the schools that are involved in some of these programs, and we've been talking about collaboration of municipalities and cities getting together and so on. I think maybe part of this scholarship program is having collaboration of all the different school systems. Because like in Cleveland school system, you have one system to deal with, but if we're going to have a scholarship program, I think perhaps we got to work on collaboration of the school system so that we have unified guidance and improvement in that regard. So I guess that's my comment. We don't really need a response.
Thank you. Did we have any public comment?
Yes, Madam Chair. Bob Papanetti has requested to speak.
Right.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to
If you
address
speak
today.
into the microphone. Thank you.
My name is Bob Papanetti. I'm the Executive Director of the Literacy Cooperative. The Literacy Cooperative of Greater Cleveland was established in 2006 through a collaborative effort of the Cleveland Foundation, George Gunn Foundation, Martha Holden Jennings Foundation. Our mission is to advance literacy through an effective service delivery system reflecting the highest standards in the field. Our vision is to assure that all children and adults in Greater Cleveland will reach their highest literacy potential for employment, self-sufficiency, and lifelong learning. The Literacy Cooperative is currently working to address the literacy needs of undereducated, low-skilled adults, intervene on behalf of young children to make sure they are prepared and ready to learn, and ensure service institutions are available and equipped to provide the highest quality services possible. I applaud your interest in establishing the scholarship fund. We need more college-educated citizens in the United States, in Ohio, and in Cuyahoga County as we continue to transition to a knowledge-based economy. The fastest-growing industries in Northeast Ohio, healthcare, civil engineering, financial services, and information technology, all require post-secondary education for career track positions. At the same time, in Northeast Ohio's more traditional manufacturing and construction industries, there is an increasing demand for higher skilled workers. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, an additional year of average total schooling among employees will lead to an 8.5% increase in productivity in manufacturing and a 12.7% increase in other sectors.
For each year of post-secondary education, an adult is more likely to be employed, earn family-sustaining wages, lead a healthier life, and have children who are better prepared to succeed in school. In spite of the economic and social benefits of post-secondary education, Cuyahoga County has 270,000 adults 25 years of age and older whose highest level of education is a high school diploma or an equivalency. There are an additional 127,000 adults without either a high school diploma or GED. The scholarship program you are discussing today will provide much-needed financial help to those adults as well as those currently in high school. However, financial barriers are not the only barriers facing college-bound students. Lack of academic preparation is a significant, if not the most significant, barrier facing many first-year college students. More than 50% of incoming community college students require remediation, also known as developmental education. While in developmental classes, students spend money, their own scholarship money or grant dollars, on an education they should have and may have received in high school, and are often discouraged when they learn that they must delay entrance into credit-bearing classes. Developmental classes are not only financially and psychologically draining to students, but the results are often mediocre. According to the National Education Longitudinal Study and data from Achieving the Dream Initiative, degree completion for remedial students is rare. While we cannot solve the challenge of the remedial student and developmental education today, we can develop supports and bridge programs that can be provided to those wishing to access the scholarship funds you are discussing. There are examples of colleges working with adult education providers to raise the literacy levels of incoming students in order to avoid developmental education or complete developmental education in tandem with college-level coursework. To be most successful, I believe the scholarship program must provide academic supports in addition to financial resources. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify. The decision to look at scholarships is exciting news at the Literacy Cooperative, and we stand ready and willing to assist you during the development of this program.
The bell came right on time.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. We'd like to thank all of our panelists. This has been extremely informative. And once again, we certainly would like the input of the public. You can contact either of your council members individually, or there will be access on our website where you can give us your input so that we'll all have the opportunity to look at it. And once again, thank you very much, and we will get back to, we've got to get together and now think of which direction we're going, but this has been extremely helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And this work session stands adjourned. We will start probably at about 10 after 6 for our regular meeting.